Hey guys, it's Maddie and welcome back to my channel. Today I have such an exciting video for Valentine's Day for February to get into the lovey romance mood. I am only going to be reading books that contain the word love in the title. So I have Love Theoretically and The Love Hypothesis, both by Ali Hazelwood. I am going to do this reading style vlog-esque, so kind of take you along each book as I'm reading it, and then at the end I will give my thoughts, ratings, a summary, things like that. So I have decided I'm going to start with Love Theoretically. I don't think these books are, again, I don't know very much about any of these books, so I don't think these two are related. There is a small crossover, I know, between Olive and Adam from The Love Hypothesis into Love Theoretically, but I don't think you need to read in any sort of order, and they're not like connected or anything. So we're going to start with Jack and Elsie from Love Theoretically. I'm 65 pages in, and this book, I don't understand a lot of the science to it, but it's so cute, the banter, and like it's just a fun book. I knew there had to be some sort of connection between the two, like Jack and Elsie, but I was not expecting that. I didn't know how it would come in, but not the way I thought. We've hit the enemies to lovers. We're hitting the lovers section. I'm just over halfway through this book, and Dr. L does not give me warm fuzzy feelings. I don't know. I think there's something about him. I don't know what it is, but I think he can't be completely trusted. I think he's got something going on behind the scenes. I just finished Love Theoretically and I loved this book. To start off, I'm giving it 4.75 stars out of 5. It was such a sweet read, and there was like the right amount of spice in it, and like their relationship. We followed Jack and Elsie throughout this book and all of their highs and lows. It's about two physicists, Jack and Elsie, but they're kind of like rivals within the department, like kind of on two different sides. So not only do we see how their relationship unfolds, but also how they interact in like the professional sense. And it's enemies or rivals to lovers. And it's a very like, their relationship's kind of complicated, and there's a lot of external factors that they're working against. But in like, I feel like you can trust Ali Hazelwood. This is the first of her books I've read, but I think you can trust her to give you like a satisfying ending and to kind of wrap everything up very nicely and to not play with your emotions too much. I hope I'm right. I think I am. But the reason why it wasn't a 5-star read for me is because I felt like sometimes there were too many descriptive words and sentences like were a little too wordy, so I'd have to go back and reread it just to kind of figure out what I was supposed to like comprehend and what she was getting at. But other than that, I loved the storyline. I loved the characters and getting to know them, and it was just a great book. I haven't read a fun read in a long time, so it was something new for me that there wasn't like this underlying tone that I had to get through like in fantasy sometimes. So it was just so nice to sit back and just get all giddy and excited to see what was going to happen next in the relationship. I can really relate to Elsie and like in the people-pleasing aspect of her, and how she always wants like validation and external approval from her peers. And it was so sweet just seeing how her and Jack, like how the relationship came and how they interact, and all the other characters. I love Cece. Cece was a hoot and a half. I love this book and I can't wait to read more from her. A little creeper in the background. And in The Love Hypothesis, we follow Olive and Adam. Adam is a professor at Stanford, and Olive is a student there. And oh, their love story. It's a whirlwind. It is like, it pulls on your heartstrings because you're like, everyone can see how good they are together except them. They can't see that they're perfect and that they just work so well together because they start by fake dating to try and convince Olive's friends to start dating. And because Olive used to date the one friend, but then they broke up and now her friend wants to date him and she needs to like prove that she is over her ex so that they can be together. And so who other than Professor Carlson, who's like the notorious badass, like not even a badass, more like a hard ass and just like a jerk and an asshole of the faculty. So they fake date, and it would also be good for his image, for his own reasons, if he had a girlfriend at Stanford. And Olive struggles with relationships and feeling good enough in relationships. So Adam is trying to bring her out of that shell and show that she is good enough and that she is perfect the way she is. Kind of similar to Love Theoretically, we have these like strong men who are trying to help these women. I know I mentioned that before, but like the more I read this book, the more it solidified that. And it was also like kind of same style and undertone of writing in both of these books. They are different, but I read them back to back, so I can definitely see the similarities in them, and I wish I didn't read them so close. I think I would have enjoyed Love Theoretically more, or I would have enjoyed The Love Hypothesis more if I had read them a little bit more spread out so that I wasn't seeing the direct overlap between the two books. But I do give The Love Hypothesis 3.75 stars. It was a little young and like immature in some parts where I'm like, okay, that's kind of like cringy cheesy, but I could like look over it because their romance and their dynamic was really good. It wasn't as spicy as Love Theoretically. It was way more of a slow burn, but it was still very enjoyable. I just got home from the library and picked up Love on the Brain and Love Pamela. I think I'm going to start with Love Pamela just as a little palate cleanser because the last two books I read were by Ali Hazelwood and I just need to switch it up a bit. I love her books, don't get me wrong, and I'm very excited to read this one, but as I mentioned before, I wish I put more space between Love Theoretically and The Love Hypothesis. So I'm going to do myself a favor and read Pamela Anderson's memoir. My day has come to an end. I just got out of the shower not too long ago, but I'm finally going to start Love Pamela. I don't know much about Pamela Anderson at all. I watched one of her documentaries and then the documentary about her and Tommy Lee, but I didn't grow up watching Baywatch, and I don't know much about her personal life besides what was on the documentaries, but I'm hoping this will do a deep dive. I'm sure it will, like this was written by her, but I'm excited to hear her story. She is such a fascinating woman. I am so excited to learn about her childhood, her growing up, what it was like in Hollywood, what it was like dating, and I think marrying one of like the biggest rock stars ever, what a fame on Baywatch brought for her, raising children in Hollywood, just everything about her. I find her so fascinating. Oh, Miss Pamela Anderson. Love Pamela. This book, I loved it. I don't rate, or I'm not going to be rating memoirs because I am nowhere qualified or have the credentials to be judging other people's lives, nor is that my place. But this book, she is such an interesting person. She is so intriguing. Like, her life to me is so fascinating. This book follows her right from birth until present day, and I didn't realize how much of an activist she is and how much she fights for animal rights and human rights and how involved she is in the world and in politics. She is such a strong woman. She knows what she wants. She knows how to get it, and that is like so makes her so much more respectable, I think, because she knows what she wants and knows that she's going to go for it and she's going to get it done one way or another. And I liked this book because she's telling you a story, but I think there's also like blurbs from like her journals, because I know she's a big like writer and journaling and documenting what goes on. So for example, there's like different text that is like stutter that sticks out and is like offset and is italicized. So I think that comes directly from one of her journals or diaries. But her life, like, she goes into detail about some things and like her past and like all of her relationships. Like, this is probably as tell-all as you'll ever get. And she really goes into like her humanitarian work and talks a lot about her family. Like, she is a hard and fast lover, and that I admire. She is a huge role model and someone I really look up to, and this book just solidified every thought I had about her. And I don't know, I just love it. It was a short read, but you've learned so much in that book and taken so much about her. And she seems like a very humble person. She came from like very little in northern, or like in BC, in Vancouver, and she like lived her life in Hollywood, did that thing, and now she's back in BC living like a quaint, quiet lifestyle in her garden. Like, she just seems so normal, and like just all the things she accomplished. I loved reading this book. I would just like to read a line from this book. Levi says, firm and final as usual, with that competent, big dick calm of his, and everyone nods somberly. More so than one would expect from a bunch of dudes who throttle one another over donuts and come into the work in their pajamas. I am loving this book so far, and I'm only 108 pages in. Is Levi schmackademics? Schmackademic, right? Is that how you say it? Schmackademics. And they're having like a secret little love going on Twitter. I really hope he is, because there's like subtle hints, like he probably hates cats anyways. Schmack has a cat and it put a tomato in his boot, so he doesn't, and she doesn't even know. Oh my gosh, I've got you, don't worry, okay? So cheesy, but I love it. Levi! Coming to pick her up from a cemetery? My God, man. Let's talk about Love on the Brain. I give this book 3 stars. I did not love it as much as Love Theoretically and The Love Hypothesis. We follow Levi, who's an engineer who works for NASA, and B is a neuroscientist who works for the NIH, and they are co-leading this project with NASA to create helmets for astronauts. I don't know the logistics of it. Don't really get it above my head, but doesn't matter. And their relationship, it annoyed me, to be honest. There was so much miscommunication in there, and Levi was kind of an asshole to her 9 times out of 10. And I know they go from like enemies to lovers, but it just wasn't a very enjoyable romance, in my opinion. Like, don't get me wrong, sometimes I was like blushing and giggling and did, for the most part, enjoy my time reading it, but I just wasn't super invested in their love story. I wasn't very connected to the characters. I really, to be honest, didn't care about where they ended up. I knew it would probably be a happy ending. I didn't know how they got there, but it was just kind of a confusing read. Like, there was a lot of added things that I don't know if they were necessary, and a lot of unfinished storylines and things that were kind of just left as is. And I don't know, this book was just a lot different than the other ones that I've read by Ali Hazelwood, and it was sometimes I was just reading it to read it. Like, don't get me wrong, I like this book. This book was okay. I don't want to like shit talk it too much because I really didn't hate it as much as it probably sounds. But it was just like so different than her other two books I read, and I don't know what the disconnect was, but I just wasn't a huge fan of these characters. I didn't feel a deep connection with them, like I said, and it was just kind of fell short from what my expectations were, and maybe they were too high, potentially. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this book. It was just okay. It didn't feel like it was a very deep plot. It was kind of just felt surface level, and that I was just reading it to read it. Maybe I just need a break from like this type of book, this genre of rom-com, but yeah, I recommend this book. I think you should read it. It just wasn't my personal favorite or what I was hoping it would be. And that's definitely a me problem, but it's fine. It's not the book's issue, it's me. We have our final book for this video, and that is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. We are going into this book so blind. I literally started reading the back and know it's about a pediatric resident, but then I stopped myself. I like read 2 sentences and I'm like, no, let's go into this knowing absolutely nothing. So we are going into this so blind, but I'm going to sit down for a few minutes and start reading and just get into this book. He's my person. He's always been my person. My best friend. My confidant. Probably the love of my life. Foreshadowing? Maybe? I'm only 65 pages in, but I don't know about this book. Elliot kind of seems borderline creepy, stalker-ish, that he was always going to find a place where Macy lived and live there as well. I don't know what happened between them in the past, but I don't know. He is very assertive and borderline aggressive. I finished Love and Other Words a few days ago, and I still don't exactly know how I feel. I have enough thoughts gathered that I can give like a pretty accurate review, but this book left me feeling some sort of way. Just to start, I give it 3 stars. I think the premise of the book and certain aspects of it were a 5-star, but then some parts left me feeling not so good. So that was like a 1 star. So it's like, it's a meh. It's an okay book. I'm glad I read it, but it wasn't life-changing, and I don't know how frequently I would like reach back for it. But it's a dual timeline, and we follow Macy and Elliot. Macy's family bought a house near Elliot, and they use that as like a summer home essentially and only go up there on weekends. So Macy and Elliot form this friendship over their mutual love for books and for reading, and they spend pretty much the whole time together when Macy's up there. And throughout the past timeline, we get to watch their friendship develop and watch them grow up. And I think they're like 12-ish, 12 or 13 when they first meet. And then in the present day timeline, Elliot and Macy haven't spoken for 11 years. It has been 11 years since they last talked. They have nothing to do with each other, and their lives obviously have changed a significant amount. For starters, Macy is engaged to a single dad named Sean. She's also a pediatric resident, which doesn't really play much into the book. Like, that's a very minute detail. And she's just settling into this new life that she's created for herself. She's getting comfortable and just kind of going through day-to-day life. All that changes when Elliot shows up one day and professes that he still loves her and always has loved her for the last 11 years. Just dropping that bomb right into Macy's lap and do with it what you will. So then Macy is forced with quite a few difficult situations and doesn't know how to handle it. So in the present day, we follow them working out the kinks and how to like interact with each other again and getting to know each other and their second chance romance. And in the present, the good parts were really good, but then the not good parts, like I said before, were really not good. So now for my thoughts. To be honest, I didn't really like Elliot, and I didn't care for Macy all that much either. I didn't find them super likable. They kind of annoyed me, to be honest. But like I could get over it and still like them enough to keep reading the book, but I just wasn't super drawn to them or attached and connected in any way. And the frickin' not talking about what the situation was that kept them apart for 11 years and keep putting it off for like days and months on end, it was very childish and immature in my opinion. And these people are supposed to be 28, 29 in present day. So, and the frickin' Macy was engaged, and you think like they would want to talk and clear the air about what happened 11 years ago for them to stop talking if they are seriously wanting to like rekindle their romance in any way. That is something like, that's the elephant in the room that someone needs to address. The stakes for the romance were very low in my opinion, and there was like no resistance at all. Like it was very easy for them to get where they wanted to be. Not that everything needs to be difficult, but it's like, it just, there was nothing at stake really. I really enjoyed the past timeline more than the present. I liked getting to know them and watching them grow and develop and just figure life out. But that being said, we are reading about two teenagers figuring out life for the very first time, and everything about life, like nothing was off the table for these two to talk about. And some parts it was a little cringy and a little awkward, but yeah, I just kind of swept those under the rug. They also had a very unique dynamic, the two main characters, because of how restricted they were seeing each other growing up. Like it was only on weekends or extended breaks throughout the school year. So they weren't, like they also had two separate lives from each other. They weren't like on top of each other all of the time. And I can see how this book is a comfort book for some people and how you would want to keep coming back to it, because it's very easy to read. Like it's a very light, fluffy book. It makes you feel good. Like you can get the warm, fuzzy feeling from it. And there's a happily ever after. And one of my favorite things, it was not anxiety inducing. I was never super stressed or worried reading this book, which is a nice change from some of the other books I have been reading recently. But there are a few things that I just cannot get past in this book. And for starters, that is the mistaken identity that Elliot goes through. If you know, you know. And that is like, I just can't get over that happened. And also him being clueless about one of the deaths. Like, I just don't get, like, was there no radios? Was there no TV that it wouldn't have been talked about? Like, the death happened not far from where he lived. So how, I just don't get it. Like, does he just live in this little bubble that nothing can come into that bubble? There are also zero repercussions whatsoever in this book. Like no one suffers from any consequence because of their action. Like everyone is just all hunky-dory, which again, if you're looking for that sweet, lighthearted, fluffy read, this is your book. And lastly, just the whole immaturity in conversations and not wanting to talk about real life things that should be talked about in a mature adult relationship. All in all, I had a semi-good time reading this book. Again, I like a little bit more anticipation, I guess, in my books and a little bit more at stake. Not more anxiety necessarily, but just not this fluffy, I guess, especially in like a second chance romance. I think there could have been like a little bit more depth to it, but for what it was just okay. And that is actually the last book I am reading for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time doing this and I'm really excited to put this video out. I think it's like probably one of the videos I'm most proud of. But I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you've read any of these books down in the comments. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!